This morning, it was a hard place. It was one of the harder places. And that's why just the 30 years is all that much more amazing. Is, a big bulk of that was spent there. And these guys just have served honorably. And we're just humbled by even what you shared just a few minutes ago. So love and appreciate you guys so much. And it's being a part of this and seeing, go visiting you guys and seeing P&G too, just, as leaders keeps us humble too and keeps us fighting on for you as we lead the mission. We're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it because we want to represent all of you. And so proud to represent all of you. And I mean that sincerely. Just have a deep appreciation for our missionary family, missionary body. As I was, listening this morning, and then, of course, listening to the Parises, and they're like, we got these 5 things. I'm like, well, gee, I hope they're not the same 5 things. I'm like, man, shucks. But I think it was like, maybe 2 of them are the same. So, but, we got to reinforce things, right? So, you're just going to get more reinforcement. But if you're dozing off, I totally understand. So you kind of stole my introduction too. Where do we want to be in the next 10 years is the question. We often ask this question in AP, and of course we talked about it in the whole vision part of things. But in a recent article I read, one person said, I just still want to be here. I think I talked a lot about vision and a lot about, obviously that had a whole accomplishment side of things and what we want to see, happen in the ministry over the next 10 years. And yet, sometimes surviving those 10 years, still being here after the end of the 10 years is an accomplishment all by itself. And so I think for us, we don't want to not recognize that. That there's something important about just the staying power of not quitting and not giving up when, I just loved, Lisa's story, and it's like, it's not a big thing. I always tell people it's like the combination of a lot of little things, and then that last little thing kind of, it's like a gut punch, right? And of course, Liz and I were 23 years on the field, and so we certainly understand, that whole side of, just those little things that pile up on you. So we're going to share. I'm going to do a point. Liz is going to do a point. We're going to go back and forth. And then, since we didn't prepare questions for a table afterwards, I thought what we'd do is we'd have maybe the Parises come up here. Since the Rojic's here, maybe you guys come up too. And then we're going to go through our things quickly. And then we'll do a Q&A with all of you. And we'll let these experts. Liz has got a workshop moment. Okay. So the first of the 5 things is, if you're going to have longevity, don't forget why you started. Don't forget why you started. Do you remember when God made it clear to you that you were called to missions? Maybe He revealed gifts that you didn't know you had, or you discovered something that you deeply were passionate about. Whatever it is, remember that moment. Especially when things become difficult. Think back to that moment in time. Remember why God called you. Sometimes you have to fight for it. And, as when we were in our first term, I had, in the first few months, I had kidney stones. And so, and it's interesting, I've never had them after this, so I got these kidney stones. I think I got in the country, I wasn't drinking enough water, and was getting a little bit dehydrated, and all of this stuff kind of all came to a head. And we were in the third world. I mean, there was nothing they could do for me really. And so it was just suffering. And I just remember, I felt like it was a spiritual attack. It was also a physical attack. But I finally said to the devil one night when I wasn't sleeping, suffering through this, I just said, you can kill me if you want to. I'm not leaving. I'm not quitting. I know this is on me. I know this is an attack by you, and I'm going to suffer through it if I have to, but I'm just not going home. And I think sometimes you got to have that fight. And during that time, I was also like, no, I remember why God called me. People would ask me, how do you survive so many years? I used to say, you got to know that you know that you know that you know that you know that God called you there, because the hard times will come, And the only thing that will keep you will be what I just said. Don't forget why you started. You started because God spoke to you to start this thing, and so you hold on to that, and that's oftentimes what carries you through.
So in transition to my point, I just want to add to Jeff's point. The last 3 weeks we've been sharing a lot, like we had guests from America, and honestly in our whole missionary career, I don't think we ever did this thing where you bring your supporters over and show them what you're doing. We never did that in our career time. I don't recollect that we did. Nobody wanted to come to Indonesia back then. And it was like volatile there. But we had the opportunity on this last trip to bring 2 supporters with us. And one had been a friend for 30 years, has been a friend for 30 years, who supported us all along the way. More for Jeff. And the other one is a new friend that we've met since we lived in Springfield. And we brought them on this trip with us. And one of the friends in particular, he is a new Holy Spirit-filled Christian, on fire for God. He's leading people in the prayer team at church, leading in prayers of salvation regularly at church. So he was on his first mission trip. And as we ventured through the different cities of Indonesia together, the one thing that really convicted me was how often we forget those divine appointments that happen along the way. And that if you are feeling stagnant in your faith, stagnant in the way you're sharing your faith, stagnant in the way that you're approaching the culture, find a person in the faith who's new, who has a new zeal for God and has a different pair of eyes than that you have. And they see things the way you used to see them. They'll come along and they'll point out, man, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. It may hurt. It actually hurt a couple times when he said, why are you doing this or that, you know? And it's like, yeah, well, we just need that. Sometimes we need someone to come alongside of us and reopen our eyes. And I believe God will do that for us as we pray and he wants us to do it. But my point today that I'm going to share is love where you live. This has come about in very practical ways. I think this point comes mostly from my daughter. She is now the 2nd generation missionary living in Indonesia, and I know there's a few missionary kids in the room. And I asked her, I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? She goes, no, you just gotta love where you live. And that happens by those seeds that we plant. And the heartbeat of this phrase is the meaning of loving where you live in location, but more importantly, loving where you are in life. Loving where you are in the moment, being present where you are, and being content in all things, and in all the imperfections that life has to throw at us. And I think I'm speaking to different seasons of life in the room where you have, serving solo, you have young moms, you have parents sending their kids off to college, you have grandparents in the room. We can learn to love that phase of life, and it has to happen when we bring it to the Lord in prayer and we begin to appreciate it for what it is, and practicing thankfulness for that part of it. The one thing the Lord dropped in my heart was the word seeds, and I think it was even talked about a little earlier. One seed of gratefulness can sow a harvest that precedes generation of faithful followers. One seed of discontentment can grow a field of weeds. So which one? My point here was choose your seeds and consider the field. Our kids are watching. You're going to have MKs grow up behind you, and they're going to be carrying on what you've brought to the table, what you bring to your meetings, what you bring home from your ministry, and we're not going to do it perfectly. I can tell you that for sure. We have not done it perfectly. So the other part I want to say about loving where you live is love it practically. My mentor, who is now 95 years old, she took me up to the mountainside one day. It was about an 1.5-hour drive up the mountain. And we went into this Indonesian public park, and she sat me down on the side of a mountain. I can picture it today. We sat on the root of the tree, and we just sat there, and we looked over the rice fields and the paddies and the valley below us. And we just sat there. She said, take a few deep breaths. Look at this place. And she in essence was saying to me, there are some days you got to get away. Some days you got to get into a place where you can just be quiet before the Lord and love where you live. You may not love the noise, the clutter, the people that are clanging around your doors early in the morning, but find a place where you can love it practically. Find your place. I don't know where it's going to be, but find your place. If you aren't enjoying the local food in a way that you like, create your own food. Some people get so bent on the fact that I don't have this one thing. For me, when I was pregnant, I wanted greasy New Jersey pizza. That's what I wanted, like dripping with grease, but I couldn't get it. Then I wanted bagels, so I taught myself how to make bagels. I think there are women in the room who can identify with this, and as you meet the needs of your family, that these are practical things that you do to make it. It doesn't all just happen overnight. It may take you 3 times to try making it. I remember the 3 times I tried making a chocolate cake, because guess what? Even though my mom is a fantastic baker, I thought a cake from scratch meant opening up a box of Duncan Hines and dumping the oil and the eggs in it. And then I realized one day, oh, it's not oil, it's butter or lard or something, those things happen. It's a learning phase. And don't beat yourself up when you don't get it right the first time. Some other practical points, and these are more practical. Make holidays great again. You can't just have Christmas without creating a Christmas tree. I've seen one of our missionaries recently make a cardboard box Christmas tree because they didn't want to spend the $200 on a tree or whatever it was. I was in the lobby of our hotel a few days ago, and they had a Christmas tree created out of all the leaves of the local tree that was available, and they put it in the shape of a Christmas tree and decorated it. I don't know what you're going to have to do to make holidays great again, and I'm going off a slogan of our current upcoming president. Make it great again. Do it. Do something wonderful for your life. Celebrations are really important. Go on vacation with some coworkers. I remember the very first vacation that we took with our coworkers. It was an adventure, it was a journey. We had a great time. It was during the holidays. We went with the parishes off to Bali. We drove there. It was a great event. So plan these things. Go on vacation or taking out with your host friends. That's even to another level. You may have to let down some of your expectations. You may have to go lower than what you normally go or higher than what you normally go. I don't know who your friends are, but think about it and then make that time special and begin to find the love, the things that the people love that you live with, and begin to love those things the same way. Here's another thing. Organize what you love. Maybe you're being overwhelmed with surviving, but purposefully taking time to make steps towards your ministry goals. Plan a prayer siege over a new location. Look into renting a space to open the right church plant. Organize your curriculum if you're homeschooling or doing Sunday school or teaching Bible school or preaching, your preaching calendar, but organize it. That's how you love well, because you plan well, you prepare it well. And I'm gonna take an action step right now for every missionary unit in the room, because Brian and Renee challenged us to plan our personal retreats. Pastor Todd planned us to plan a strategy meeting. Jeff planned, I can't remember. Brian and sorry, we didn't get to your point yet. Sam and Lisa have challenged us in rhythms. So I would like you to just think in your mind very quickly. Each missionary unit, we're going to take a 5-minute quiet moment to look at some of these points that you have not planned yet. And if it's too much for you to plan, I want you to open up your calendars right now. Choose a date in the very, very near future that you can begin to plan some of these things. Because Jeff and I, we used to take every Monday together. We had a Monday where we'd sit down for the week. We're pastoring, we're church planting, we're doing all of these discipleship things, but every Monday was our day to sit down and go over the week in advance, go over what we're gonna do, maybe even talk about future plans. But I wanna challenge you today to take an action step. We've been encouraged here, but you're in about 2 minutes or so, you're gonna be walking out the doors with your kids. You're gonna get busy, and you're gonna be traveling back. So today, we've learned to plan these parts of our life. So 5 minutes, talk about what you need to plan, and open your calendar and mark it. That's all I'm asking you to do.
I think Mondays was our planning days.